Football is back. Yes, we have finally made it to week 1 of the 2023 NFL regular season, starting off with the Kansas City Chiefs hosting the Detroit Lions in Arrowhead Stadium. And for a while, I did personally think this was going to be a pretty big blowout type of win for the Chiefs coming back off of their Super Bowl victory, hosting another game to start the season. But there's been some interesting developments regarding the Chiefs, including on Tuesday with their star tight end Travis Kelce, that I think could have a huge impact on the game. We'll dive into a couple of issues I foresee potentially hurting the Chiefs on opening night. But first, I'm going to go back to last season and see how both of these teams ended the year and what differences and changes they made to their rosters heading into this season. Starting with the reigning Super Bowl champions, the Kansas City Chiefs, they were actually the only team last year that had a true successful season because it did end in a Super Bowl win. They once again were the class of the AFC West and of the AFC, finishing 14-3 and earning the #1 seed in the entire playoffs. And honestly, going into the season, there was a lot of questions regarding them having success last year because they lost a lot of key players, including their star wide receiver, Tyreek Hill. They traded him away for a boatload of picks, and there was a lot of concerns with their weaponry that they had on the outside with Patrick Mahomes. To help patch up some of those issues, they brought in Juju Smith-Schuster, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and of course, they still had the best tight end in the league in Travis Kelce to help out their passing attack. But there were a handful of people in the media that were expecting the Chiefs to use last season as sort of a rebuild year, to recoup some cap space, to draft a lot of young players with the new capital that they had just gotten from the Tyreek Hill trade, and hopefully down the line have those young players build them up to another Super Bowl caliber team and hopefully get over the top once again. But when you have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, the standard team building processes don't exactly apply, and the Chiefs absolutely obliterated any doubt that they would not again be one of the best teams in the league. Now, comparing the rosters from last year to this year, there are a few different changes, but roughly it is the same team from a year ago. Offensively, they have 2 new starting tackles this year, which could be pretty interesting to watch early in the season how they perform. Last year, they started Orlando Brown at left tackle and Andrew Wiley at right tackle for the entire season. In free agency, Orlando Brown signed with the Cincinnati Bengals. Andrew Wiley signed with the Washington Commanders. So the Chiefs went out and signed longtime Tampa Bay Buccaneer Donovan Smith to fill their void at left tackle, and signed a big price free agent in Jawan Taylor from the Jacksonville Jaguars to be their new right tackle. Now, Donovan Smith is a pretty solid player. The problem with him is he always leads the league in penalties, whether it's holding calls or false starts. If he can clean that up, I don't think he's going to be a prominent left tackle whatsoever. So it's going to be up to Andy Reid and their offensive line coach to make sure he can hash out some of those penalty problems. Jawan Taylor on the right side of the line, though, I think he will be better than what Andrew Wiley was. And I think Wiley was a pretty solid player. I don't think he was a massive issue that gave up a ton of sacks and a ton of pressures. He was pretty solid. So I think their offensive line is still going to be really good and one of the best in the league. They're still retaining the 3 interior linemen that were really good last year in Joe Tooney, Creed Humphrey, and Trey Smith. The only other really main difference is their wide receiver core. They lost Juju Smith-Schuster, who was their top wide receiver target a year ago. They're also going to have Kadarius Toney for a full season. Sky Moore will be entering year number 2. They drafted Rashid Rice in the 2nd round, and they also have Justin Ross, who actually made the final 53-man roster. So offensively, the talent is basically the exact same as last year, I think with even a higher ceiling, and they still have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid calling plays. Their offense is going to be just fine. And it's pretty much the same thing on defense, just some more young players getting more opportunities this season. Those players like Brian Cook, he will be starting at free safety this year. George Karlaftis is going to be a full-time starter at defensive end. So I actually think their defense will end the season better than they ended last year. They allowed 22.2 points per game, which was good for the 18th scoring defense in the league. And with them having a lot of young starters on that defense entering year number 2 and year number 3, I expect their defense to be better this year. That, of course, is obviously contingent on Chris Jones playing for the Chiefs this year and not sitting out the entire season or a big bulk of the season. As of right now, he's the only true blue chip player on that entire unit. And the difference in how good their defense will be with and without him is drastic. So Chiefs fans hope Jones gets back soon. So overall, this is pretty similar to the Chiefs roster that won a Super Bowl a year ago. That is a big reason why they again have so many expectations. Now, the Detroit Lions, on the other hand, basically had 2 entirely different seasons last year. They started off 1-6 and looked like one of the worst teams in the league, but somehow the magic of Dan Campbell rallied the Lions, and defying all odds, they ended the season with a winning record at 9-8. Now, I don't know about you guys, but going into last season, I was pretty high on the Lions. I even posted a video during the offseason basically saying the Lions will take a big leap in 2022. So the first 2 months of the season, I was like, damn, I really missed on them. But then they turned it around and became the team that I expected them to be from the start. But now after a season like that where you absolutely shatter expectations, as a result, those expectations get higher. And the Lions have actually been one of the most hyped up teams in the entire league this offseason and have become the most popular pick to win the NFC North for their first time since 1993. As far as the roster goes, it's night and day compared to where they were just 2 years ago when they only won 3 games. Starting with their offensive line, just a season ago, it was one of the best units in the entire league, and they're bringing back all 3 of their core pieces. Those include left tackle Taylor Decker, center Frank Ragnow, and right tackle Penei Sewell. They completely changed the running back room by signing signing David Montgomery and drafting Jahmyr Gibbs in the first round, and then replacing DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams, who did lead the league in touchdowns last year. But outside of receiver, they still have their young stud in Amon-Ra St. Brown. They're bringing back Khalif Raymond and Josh Reynolds. They were all the top 3 wide receivers for the team last year. They also signed Marvin Jones to help with their receiver depth, bringing him back for a second stint with the team. Another potentially huge move for their offense this season is their tight end position. If you remember, during the season last year, they traded away TJ Hawkinson to their division rival, the Minnesota Vikings. At the time, I really didn't agree with that decision to trade away one of the best tight ends in the league to a team that you're going to play twice a year, but they did it. They got some good capital back, and they replaced him in the draft, getting Sam Laporta out of Iowa. Jared Goff is returning. He had a really good season last year, and Ben Johnson as well, their offensive coordinator, he's back. So there's a lot of encouragement for this offense that was number 5 in the league in terms of points per game last year, and the expectation is for them to be around that mark again this year. Defensively, though, is where the Lions struggled a lot last season, really the main reason why they did not sneak into the playoffs. But the front office realized that and completely overhauled that side of the ball this offseason and made a lot of really nice moves. They went out and signed CJ Gardner-Johnson to a 1-year deal. He was one of the best free safeties in the league. He's coming over from the Philadelphia Eagles and had a career year last year. So that was a fantastic get for their defense, which really struggled in the back end. They also went out and signed Cameron Sutton from the Pittsburgh Steelers. They also got Emmanuel Mosley from the San Francisco 49ers. In the second round of the draft, they also selected Brian Branch, one of the most versatile secondary pieces in the entire draft. So they added a ton of pieces to their secondary, and I think that's definitely going to help out one of the worst passing defenses from a year ago. Their other huge addition was getting Jack Campbell in the first round from Iowa. The big 6'4" linebacker, he's going to be huge in defending the middle of the field and helping improve their run defense. Those are just all the newcomers, though. They also have a handful of really nice returning young players. It's headlined by Aiden Hutchinson, who had 9.5 sacks as a rookie. He's on the trajectory to be an elite pass rusher, and I'm excited to see him in year number 2. Kirby Joseph, the 3rd round pick from last year as well, is going to be playing alongside CJ Gardner-Johnson. I'm excited to see that pairing. Their 6th round pick from last year, James Houston, he will be back as well. He had 8 sacks last year. Him and Aiden Hutchinson are the future pass rushers for this team. And then even Aylin McNeil, their nose tackle, he was really effective last year in stopping the run. So when you combine all of the core pieces that are returning and all of the newcomers that I mentioned, I think this defense is going to be drastically better this year. But that is a quick summary of these two teams a season ago and the new additions they made this offseason. But now to get into the weeds of this matchup, the Lions will head into Arrowhead as 5.5-point underdogs with not a lot of people expecting them to pull out this victory. Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes have an insane 13-3 record together in the month of September and a 31-7 record at home. So yeah, it's not going to be easy. But I actually give the Lions a really good chance to win this game, especially with the news regarding Travis Kelce and Chris Jones. I mentioned Chris Jones' value earlier to this defense, and it does not look like he's going to be playing for the Chiefs in week 1 or even early in the season. They have yet to agree on a contract. They have yet to come close to agreeing on a contract. And because of that, Chris Jones has been sitting out all of the offseason program. He already said that he might sit out half of the season to make a statement. So I do not think Chris Jones is going to be showing up in the next couple of days and be ready to play on Thursday. So that is a massive loss for the Chiefs defense, and especially the run defense against a team that has a really nice offensive line and a pair of really nice running backs. And the other massive development that took place on Tuesday is Travis Kelce hyperextended his knee in practice, and his availability for the game on Thursday is in serious doubt. Adam Schefter reported that his ACL is intact. I don't think there's structural damage, but his knee is inflamed, and they're going to recheck his knee on Wednesday to make sure that he is available to play on Thursday. But this is definitely not encouraging. I don't know if they're going to push him to play in week 1 just in case he could potentially hurt it more and miss even more time. So my best guess is they played safe with him, and he does not play week 1 either. And now the Chiefs are without 2 of their top 3 players on their entire team. So with all of that in mind, I'm officially picking the Detroit Lions to upset the Kansas City Chiefs and bring their hype to an all-time high. I think with Chris Jones out, the Lions are going to be able to run the ball very effectively. I like the running backs and David Montgomery. I like Jahmyr Gibbs, and their offensive line is really, really good. So I think we're going to see a game where the Lions have 150, 170 rush yards, and Jared Goff will be effective in the play action game because the running game is doing so well. And for the Chiefs, I still think they're going to be able to put up points with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, but it's definitely going to be a little bit harder without Travis Kelce. I think it's going to be harder for them to score consistently, and with the Lions being able to control the clock and run the football, I think they're going to limit Patrick Mahomes' possessions and squeak out a tight win on the road. But let me know what you think about this game and who you have winning. Are you siding with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid despite all the adversity that the Chiefs are facing heading into this game? Or if you're with me and you think the Detroit Lions are going to shock a lot of people this year starting in week number 1. But subscribe to the channel if you are new, drop a like on the video if you did enjoy it, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in my next one.